Molo Sanbonani, hello, how's it? Good morning, good morning, good morning. It is a wonderful Tuesday morning, and you're joined, of course, by moi, Sihle Ngobese, aka Big Daddy Liberty. This is the Tuesday edition of Vuka Nazo, your morning news analysis show. Good morning, welcome to it. Remember, if you want to get in touch with us, and of course, dun, 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 look out for new merch, which might be hitting our website as we open up a little shop there for you to get some t-shirts and other goodies. There, of course, that I'm talking about is on my website at www.bigdaddyliberty.com. More information on how you can get merch and the like soon, as we're looking to launch the online shop. Now, with that being said, all of our information, social media information, of course, is in the descriptor of this video, and do me a favor whilst you're on the website, contribute towards the show. As little as 100 Rand a month, a contribution by you is more than enough to begin to help me hire the people that will help me put together and professionalize this channel. Now, enough with the jibber jabber. How about we get straight into the news? All right, we begin here this morning with the much feared R word in this country. I'm talking, of course, about rape. I want to do a little bit of a focus on this most heinous crime in this country because, you know, there's quite a few stories that I've come across which represent the good, the bad, and the ugly of this particular topic. Indeed, the ugly and the bad would be one such story as this one that was covered in The Independent, where a Cape Town girl last year in April suffered the most horrific rape at the hands of an individual who's still being sought by the police. This girl, 8-year-old girl, of course, from Maitland in Cape Town, you can imagine is still suffering the trauma from that incident after, of course, this alleged rapist had lured her as she was walking home after school, fully dressed in school uniform, lured her into his car, drove off with her, and then upon getting to an abandoned part of town, obviously then proceeded to rape her. Now, I raised the story because, as I mentioned, the police are still appealing rather to the public to assist in tracking this man. The story in The Independent was written up as follows. Quoting, of course, the police spokesperson and F.W. van Wyk, he's said to have said that the Cape Town Family Violence, Child Protection and Sexual Offences Unit is investigating the case and is appealing to the public to assist in locating and identifying the suspect. The suspect is said to be a black man believed to be in his 30s or early 40s, light in complexion and about 1.8 meters tall, of medium build with brown hair. The key here, insofar as an identifier, is that the man also happened to speak Shona during this attack. Shona, of course, being a language more commonly spoken in Zimbabwe. End of quote. Now, I raise this issue because it will lead into the second story of today, where there's a little bit of good news insofar as a mass rapist who was convicted for a very long time before prison. But before I get to that, let me hash out why stories like these really bother me. We have a fundamental problem in this country of rape and sexual misconduct, insofar as there is, as I've always argued, a failure on two fronts by us as society. You know, we should stop pointing fingers elsewhere or playing the gender game of saying hashtag men are trash or whatever the case, but actually look towards us as a society. I talk a lot about faith, flag, family, and freedom. That family part is critically important, where it begs the question, how are we socializing young men? How are we raising young men in our society? Are we seeing a generation of young men being raised by positive role models, reaffirming characters, older male figures? We live in a situation where, even as I ask where the fathers are in this country, you know, 3 out of every 4 children in this country are raised in a single parent household, with the overwhelming majority of those children being raised by single mothers. Indeed, Of that number, shockingly enough, 1 in 5 children in this country are even raised in households where there are no parents in the home. These are the sort of stats upon which the foundation of these sort of crimes are built. And this is the conversation we're failing to have, especially as we listen to the feminist types and the woke gender types who basically spew, misdirect, and dribble and distract us with the gender wars. There's no gender war. There is a failure or a war against the family unit where our children, whether it be young men and young women, are not being socialized in a way which produces the kind of sober, prudent, moral generation of men. And that's where, for me, we need to focus, because it's not enough for us to not identify the role of the failure of parenting in the story, especially when we expect, in this society at least, for government to raise our children. That's the expectation, at least, of those who push this notion that, the failure of families is okay and that the state can raise our children. It's simply a fallacious view which bears a very heavy cost on us as society. All right, sticking, of course, with that R word as a topic of the day. I'm talking, of course, about rape, sexual assaults, and sexual offenses. Indeed, a second story today, which brings in, as I mentioned at the beginning, there's the good, the bad, and the ugly. In this instance, perhaps the bad and the good. The good, of course, being the conviction of a serial rapist in the Northwest Province, a monster of an individual, a one Jacob Khaklane, if I'm pronouncing that properly, who had raped allegedly 15, or actually not allegedly because he's been convicted. He had raped 15 women, 6 of whom were younger than 18. The youngest was a 4-year-old. Gosh. Pardon me, the youngest was a 14-year-old schoolgirl, and the oldest a 37-year-old woman. That monster has been locked away for a very long time. The piece, of course, is in News 24, which wrote it up, detailing the sentence as follows: that he himself, that's Jacob Khaklane, was sentenced to 6 life terms, with only 2 of those sentences expected to run concurrently. In addition, he received 150 years imprisonment on 15 charges, which included robbery, kidnapping, and attempted rape. What a monster. End of quote. Now, the good part of it, of course, is the fantastic police work, indeed the dogged commitment of a Sergeant Clifford Mokone from the South African Police Service, who tracked down, hunted down this particular monster of a rapist, ending effectively the rapist's 4-year reign of terror in communities in and around the Northwest Province. Again, I must applaud this. This is really part of the good that I like to talk about. And if you're a fan of the show, you know that I always say this, that in this country, for as much as there is a asshat of a police minister who provides the worst political leadership and a overall terrible management structure of the police in this country, a lot of whom are deployed political hacks, who have fundamentally corrupted the management structure of the police. It doesn't change the fact, as I always say, that there are good, committed, literally almost savior-like police officers who don that blue uniform daily, put on those bulletproof vests, attach their service pistols to their hips and patrol our communities, or in the case of a Sergeant Mokone here, hunt down some of the worst, scummiest criminals, often with caseloads that are as tall as them. But even with that workload, they do their absolute best in order to see to it that the worst of our society are locked away and found behind bars. It's those sort of police officers who we should be clapping for and literally supporting as a community, as a faith, flag, family and freedom type society. Why do I spend this time lauding this man? Because often they don't get these kudos. They don't get these congratulations. Worse yet, they get lumped in with the terrible rotten apple type police officers. And it's high time we actually give praise where it's due. Because again, as I said, if you look at how this man was, or this criminal, was eventually tracked down by Sergeant Mokone. It shows to me that the dogged determination for this man to do his job, even as he faces the bad, right? The bad, which is, as I mentioned, a police management and a police leader by way of Ubekicele, the asshat, who make their job as detectives incredibly difficult. The collapsing of the DNA testing mechanism within the South African Police Service has effects on the jobs of such detectives. Listen to this particular piece that details, again, also in the News 24 piece, the process with which, pardon me, this detective tracked this suspect. It wasn't until, of course, in August of 2013, with the help of an informant, God bless that informant, who revealed the location of the rapist Vuka, that led to his arrest. Now, in 2013, he's quoted as saying, the detective that is, we traced and located him in Letabong, where he was arrested for the cases in Leklabile. Now, even then, we did not know, this is the detective speaking, that we were dealing with a serial rapist, and here's the kicker, until the DNA, which triggered all the other cases reported in Letabong and Tabazimbi, where the suspect, was unknown. That's Umokone. Now, end of quote. I raise this because that DNA element, as you'll know, is crucial to the work of detectives like these, and yet, even though it is instrumental, crucial in securing convictions, police management have allowed this facility, this service, to fall by the wayside, where the backlog in DNA cases, the last I tracked the story, was already in excess of 200,000 cases in this country. So these detectives are working under incredibly difficult circumstances in order to put away bad guys. And it's on that basis that I'm saying we as ordinary South Africans need to do much more to support such police officers, including putting pressure on a certain asshat of a minister to, on the one hand, leave that position, and at the very least in the interim, whilst he's in it, fix the damn system and allow these cops to do their work. Kudos to you, Sergeant Clifford Mokone. Long may you continue serving in the police and putting away bad guys. All right, in my last story for the day, and indeed keeping with my focus of the day of not necessarily rape in this story, but the police, and our need to support police officers, this story would have been very easy for me to make a mockery of and make fun of, and for us to have a fat laugh, especially when the video looks like this. Now, that police officer you see dancing away there and entertaining those soccer fans was actually not supposed to even be there. This is an individual who was alleged to be intoxicated and is now facing sanction by the police, rightly so, for, on the one hand, being intoxicated, but also bringing the badge and the image of his organization, the South African Police Service, into disrepute. Management in Gauteng indicating that they will instill disciplinary action against him. In fact, I want to quickly read from this piece in News 24, which explained perhaps how he even landed at the stadium as follows. The officer's woes began when he was actually booked off duty after he arrived to work intoxicated. According to, of course, the spokesperson for the police, the member who is attached to the Rapid Railway Unit reported for duty on Saturday morning under the influence of liquor. His commander immediately booked him off duty based on his condition. That particular member was then also immediately disarmed and sent back home. It was later discovered that the constable proceeded on his own accord to the Orlando Stadium in Soweto, gained access to the stadium, and was subsequently seen in the video clip dancing on the soccer pitch. This is according to Umate, who speaks on behalf of the South African Police Service in Gauteng. Now, for me, as I said, it's easy for me to make this a funny story, laugh, haha, funny, funny, look at how he's dancing in police uniform. But one of the things which I've always argued we need to focus in on and zoom in on is the mental health of our police men and women, the kind of pressure they work under, the kinds of things they see when they deal with the absolute worst of criminally minded individuals in society, when they are the sort of people who are first on the scene sometimes at horrific accident scenes and the like. The trauma our police officials undergo and the pressure they're under often sees them turning to substance abuse, alcohol, drugs, and the like in order to simply cope. And one of the things we need to be a lot more vocal about is questioning whether SAPS management is providing these sort of mental health services that are desperately needed in our servicemen and women. We often see, unfortunately, when it's too late, that a certain member, required assistance, maybe when they eventually snap and they embark on a violent episode where maybe they harm others and harm themselves, or even self-harm by way of intoxicating themselves with alcohol and drugs and the like. So that I caution. I mean, I know we've all done it. We've always seen a clip or a video of maybe a drunk officer or a cop doing something silly and maybe had a giggle at it. A video I did quite recently, I just forget what vlog it was. I'll put it up over here, where that almost infamous incident of a police officer in Cape Town who had snapped after he had lost his brother, his twin brother, if my memory serves me right. And horrifically, that officer snapped and went on a violent sort of kung fu-esque escapade at a bus rank and, was seen beating up his colleagues at the time under emotional duress at the time. Again, not condoning the behavior, but making the overall point of, are we supporting our policemen and women? And clearly the answer is no, especially when you see these sort of incidents and you realize that there is a big problem within the South African Police Service. All right, that's it for today, folks. Unfortunately, a bit of a sad, gloomy and doomy one, as will be the case when one is talking about rape and sexual offences, and indeed the state of policing, and not necessarily policing, but of policemen and women in this country. I'm asking you to care more. I'm asking you to take a moment to actually care about the people who spend their lives, devote their lives to protect you and our families. And maybe with that being said, let me wrap the show up here and thank you for watching. Remember, you can get in touch with us here at the Big Daddy Liberty Show by simply finding us on our website. That's at www.bigdaddyliberty.com. And of course, hey, do me a solid favor. If you're watching the simulcast on Facebook and especially on YouTube, subscribe to the channel and hit that bell notification so that every weekday from 7 a.m. you're notified when Vuka Nazo is on your screens. Happy Tuesday, and I'll see you tomorrow.